Thanks for coming, everybody. This is Colin Pape. He's the founder and CEO of ShopCity.com and also the project lead for Presearch.org, which is what we're here to learn about. If you guys have any questions, put them in the Presearch questions channel right above this event's chat, and he'll get to it. Also, if you have any questions throughout it, feel free to type it out, and I'll interrupt him if need be if he's moving on to another question. Go ahead and take over when you're ready, Colin.
Yeah, so I appreciate the opportunity. Great to connect with this community and everybody that's interested in the project that's followed over from Telegram. Pretty excited about the progress that we've been making with Presearch. We've been assembling a world-class team. We've got people who have experience building a search engine from a startup environment, not just from a big corporate environment. So some of our team members include a gentleman named Rich Skrenta. You can check him out on the Presearch.io website. Rich is a pretty accomplished entrepreneur. He was actually the founder of the Open Directory project, which, if you're familiar with search engine optimization or kind of the early genesis of the web, became the DMOZ directory, which was then acquired by Netscape and really kind of became the foundation of the early web. It was the main source that Yahoo and Google used in the early days. He then went on to build a large news aggregator called Topics. He also started a search engine called Bleco that raised $100 million in venture capital and went on to become acquired by IBM Watson, where he ended up leading IBM Watson as executive director. We have a number of people from his team who've joined us, as well as our own internal team, which was kind of forked from our ShopCity.com company. So we've got about a dozen developers and technical people that are working on the project right now. There's about 20 people in total. We are keeping it fairly lean in the early days. We're working on lots of proofs of concept and just getting a lot of the early usage sorted out, which is always kind of the key. Lots of technologies get built, but if they can't actually find users, then the projects don't work. And we've been really fortunate in the case of Presearch that it's been a really well-used product right from the start. About 40% of the people who have signed up to do beta testing continue to be daily active users, which is a huge number. That's largely, I'm sure, due to the token incentivization that's built into the model, and that is really why we did it. We know just how challenging this problem is. We are taking on the world's premier online company, the most connected, influential company in the history of the world, and it's not going to be particularly easy to make a dent in their universe. And so we really need every bit of ammunition that we can get, and the tokens are really a great way to incentivize people to switch in the earliest days, and then give us a user base of people who can help us test and refine the product, contribute information, build the community around the project, so that we can actually have results that are as good or better than Google. And so yeah, we're pretty excited. We've got we're closing in on about 25,000 beta testers right now. Goal is to have 100,000 by the end of the month. We've opened up a referral program today, so it's just gone live a few hours ago. So if you go to Presearch.org, create your account, and then in the top right corner there is a link that says refer your friends. In there you can get a referral URL, and you will earn 25 extra Presearch tokens for everybody that you refer. And the incentive for them to join through your link is that they will also get 25 extra Presearch tokens. So yeah, we're really excited about how that's been going. The early crowd sale went really well. We brought in 16 million, which is putting us in a great position to realize this vision and to build out the team and the technology that we need to really transform search. So yeah, what's kind of interesting to I think a lot of people is that we're actually based in a small town in Ontario, Canada. So we're about an hour and a half north of Toronto. There's about 20,000 people in this town, and it's you know, part of the story. You know, we do have Rich and the team that are in Silicon Valley, so we're definitely well connected in that space as well. But the genesis for this project is really more Main Street. In fact, our office is right on the corner of the main intersection in our town. Our other company, shopcity.com, which has been profitable for a few years now. We've got about 60 plus people that are working on it right now. And it was started way back in April of 2000. You know, that company is focused on local search. It is really trying to close the gap between the big guys and the small guys, trying to band people together and help them take on the incumbents and create a model that works better for kind of the broader world rather than just, you know, the 1% that is in kind of these select geographies that seem to take up all the attention and the capital. So yeah, that's kind of the genesis of things and where we are. And there's been some great questions asked. If anybody has any more, please feel free to add them into the Presearch questions chat room, and I'll try to cover as many as I can. I don't know how long I have, Nick, so just cut me off whenever you need to. I'm assuming we probably have about an hour.
Yeah, typically. We have as long as you'd like.
Okay.
We run out of questions or you run out of things to talk about, then we can end it there. So it's really up to you.
Awesome. Okay, cool. And yeah, I really appreciate the opportunity, Nick, and your support. We connected in the earlier days of the token sale, and I think we've got a lot of shared vision for the project as well as for the crypto and decentralization space. So awesome to connect with this community. So yeah, first question we have here: how do you think Presearch can change the search engine industry? So I mean, ultimately, what has been just one of the big challenges, and not so much for users, and this is really kind of the thing. It's more about the producers and the people that are contributing the actual content, because especially in the earliest days, Google had no content. Google was not a content creator. Google was not kind of the Borg that it is now with the tentacles into all the different facets of our online lives, where it was actually, you know, creating systems. The earliest days, Google was all about the 10 blue links, and part of their earliest mission was actually to get you off of Google as quickly as possible. And so that worked out really well for everybody at that time. Because the incentive was to kind of partner more with those who actually created the content. So you had the web developers, webmasters, the businesses, the nonprofits, the individuals, the creators who were creating content, and Google was really just the way to find that information. And then, you know, as it continued to grow, and it's just kind of inevitable based on the model, unlike Presearch, which has been kind of kickstarted with a crowd sale that really puts us into an alignment with our community, which includes both users, consumers, and producers. You know, Google was funded by venture capital and angel investors. And so kind of the logical progression there is that they need to figure out an exit path for those investors. And so they went from, you know, being privately funded to publicly funded. And in the public markets, everything is based on, you know, really one thing, which is your revenue, your profit. And so as, you know, time went on, Google started to really, I think, look at how it could monetize those early partners. And in the process, it's really changed them from being partners to really almost just, you know, plankton. It's kind of the people that it survives on. And so there's really a lack of alignment there. And what we're hoping is that we can kind of bring things back into alignment, bring more power to the producers, more power to the creators, and to have just more of an aligned community that is more open and transparent, that's decentralized, so that not all the power is happening with one organization that's ultimately run by one person. I mean, in the earliest days, right now with Presearch, I'm the one that's controlling the project, but ultimately, the goal, and it's as quickly as possible, is the plan, is to transition so that this is a community managed project that no one person will be able to really influence to the degree that you can with a company like Google, for instance, or some of the other online giants. So I think that's how we're really going to change things, and it is really about grassroots, ground up, and trying to just create a shift in what has been just this massive trend of centralization, to the point where this is the most centralized entity and flow of information in the history of the world, to hopefully what is a little bit more in line with the genesis of the internet, and try to have something that's distributed, where lots of people can contribute and produce, and no one person or organization is in control. The second question we have is, where do we see Presearch in 2 years and the end of the beta? So beta is probably going to be in effect really kind of for probably the rest of the year. We are, we're learning every day. There's tons of stuff that we're doing that hasn't been done before. We are building up proofs of concept on the technology side. We're looking at, changing user behavior, which is never easy, especially again when you've got a company as powerful and as responsive to users, and as integrated into as many devices and networks as a company like Google is. So a lot of learning going on right now. But what we see in 2 years is having millions of users, really kind of a groundswell of interest in the project, people that are super excited about actually participating in this process, which I think is going to just overall change the dynamic on the internet. Right now, we're mainly in kind of lean back, passive mode, and I think there's a better way for things to work where we're more actively involved in the process. And so, within 2 years, we want to see a really thriving token economy, where the tokens are being consumed very actively by the advertisers and the marketers that are utilizing the platform, the people who are using it as consumers, and who are finding all the different ways that they can customize, for instance, their Presearch, and integrate some of the different results and workflows and things that will help them with their searching and with their use of the internet in general. And so we see lots of really great opportunities there. We're also looking at different ways that we can leverage the Presearch token to enable more value to be captured, and to really create more value as well for those who are being rewarded. Ultimately, we want to provide them with lots of options to use those tokens, so that there's tons of value all over the place, and being exchanged by all the participants within the internet ecosystem. So yeah, hopefully that answers that question. Next one is, how do we get this awesome idea? Thanks for the compliment. So really, I've been involved in the internet for almost 20 years. I'm 38 right now. Started building websites when I was 17, 18, back in the late 90s. And actually, with our first project, shopmidland.com, which was the genesis for shopcity.com, at the top of that site, there was a search field, and the search field enabled you to either search the local Midland businesses or search Google. And at that time, in 2000, Google actually was not that big yet. A lot of people didn't know about it. They were still using alternative search engines like Metacrawler, for instance, and some of the other options at the time. Alta Vista was another big one. And so we actually introduced a ton of people to Google. Been in this space for a long time. After that, had a venture called Startster, It was startster.com, and it was basically a start page builder. Bootstrapped that in about 2004. And then unfortunately, Google came along with a start page builder called iGoogle. And, they ran that for a few years and then they shut it down. But, that was kind of one of the learnings for me. I got fearful that Google was just going to come and eat my lunch, and that didn't make sense to continue pursuing. And then, I stopped after we had reached probably around the number of users that we have right now. This was in the early days. We had a go-to-market, which was classified ads actually on a site called fark.com, which was kind of like a Reddit site. And just, ended up being one of those learning experiences. And I've kind of had a number of those over the years where you see these really big incumbents come along, and it looks like they're going to crush the smaller players. And so, sometimes they quit, or, they end up selling off or whatever. And then the big company, they don't have the core focus on that same problem. And so they end up, either shutting down, or they can never really monetize it. It never becomes that successful anyways. And so that's partly what, is kind of giving us the courage to stand up to some of these really big players, and to know that if we really focus on this opportunity, which we see as being completely different than the current search paradigm, that we can be successful. And it's what gives us that persistence and that drive to stick through the challenges, and to not be, fearful in the face of tremendous competition. So, that was kind of Startster. And then, Shop City, which has been the ongoing venture the whole time, again, for about almost 18 years now. Or yeah, actually 18 years almost to the day. So with that one, in 2011, we basically ran into an issue where Google more or less blackballed our sites. We still aren't 100% sure what happened, but woke up middle of July in 2011, and boom, all of our Google traffic's gone. And really didn't make sense to us. Nothing had changed on our end. We had all these partnerships with city governments and chambers of commerce and other organizations that were very credible, really high quality data. And excuse me, so it just didn't really make sense. We started trying to get in touch with Google, try to figure out what was wrong. Realized that there was no way to connect with anybody there. They were basically just this giant wall, this huge monolithic structure. Tried going in through all these different community channels, couldn't get anywhere. After a couple of weeks, we were starting to really freak out. 70% of our traffic was gone. And I ended up just coming across an article from or talking about a guy, Gary Reback, who was an antitrust lawyer. He was the guy who broke up Microsoft with Windows and Internet Explorer back in the late 90s. And he was doing an investigation with the FTC into some of Google's practices. So I reached out to him. Didn't know what would happen. He's like $1,000 an hour lawyer. And sure enough, he got back to me within 15 minutes and said he wanted to meet, wanted to hear our story. So I started talking to him about how we had this really unique circumstance where it was kind of a control group. We had all these different shopcity.com sites that, were in kind of various states within the Google index, and that, if they said it was a quality issue, we could point to why it wasn't. If they said it was a system issue, we could point to why it wasn't. And he got really excited. And while I was sitting there in his boardroom, he got up, left. Next thing I know, my phone starts ringing. It's Mike Lidke from the Associated Press, Mike Swift from San Jose Mercury News, and they're interested in writing about our story. So we ended up working with Mike Swift at San Jose Mercury News. He broke the story. We got some quotes from, head of Google PR, Gabriel Stricker, and, Danny Sullivan from Search Engine Land. He was quoted in the article, and basically Google said it was a quote unquote quality issue, but they admitted that our sites had undergone basically a manual penalty, which was really the first time that they were really talking about the fact that they actually had humans somewhere and it wasn't all algorithmically driven. And so that was what, had happened to our sites. And so after that, it took us a while. We ended up getting a contact. So, Matt Cutts, who's the head of search quality, at Google, I was able to connect with him, and over a period of about a month and a half, we slowly started getting our sites kind of out of the penalty box. We participated in part of the Senate and FTC investigation, and we could kind of see that nothing was really going to happen, unfortunately. But we were able to get some resolution and continue on with the shopcity.com business. But it kind of left this just taste in our mouths, and we really experienced this kind of sense of injustice about how the whole thing happened. And in the process, we uncovered like thousands and thousands of businesses and content creators and people who had been penalized by Google, put onto page 4 to 8 like we were. And in a lot of cases, it led to layoffs. It led to people going bankrupt, and it just really didn't seem right. And so, as time went on, I ended up getting kind of this idea for Presearch. And so I ended up building out just a really rudimentary version. It had, some of the main search providers that we utilized ourselves kind of within the shopcity.com environment. And it was basically just kind of what Presearch is right now. It was a single search field. It let you search, Google, as well as all the different providers. For instance, we're always doing domain name lookups, or we wanted to search into our company CRM system, or we're doing technical searches, looking up name server records or mail server records or any of these other things that are relevant to the business. And it was just a really fast, easy way to access those results through a single search field. And then you click the icon you want below, rather than Google whatever you want, pull it up, then enter your search, or have it bookmarked and then have to go through that same process. And it just became really sticky, and we started using it internally, really just kind of family and friends. And we didn't really see a go-to-market strategy with it per se, because we did know how challenging it was to go up against Google. But we thought that if there was a way to challenge Google, this would be the way. Basically, you would leverage them, you make it so that they are one of the providers. You can still search them through Presearch, and then you basically are adding value on top of that by enabling all this kind of customization, and basically you're targeting power users, people that are really actively on computers generally. We've got a really great mobile play, we think, as well, but mainly we're focused on desktop, and we're focused on web workers, the people that are on the internet 12, 18 hours a day in some cases, and they're doing really high value searches. And we figured that we could create a ton of value for them and just make life a lot easier. We saw, a big opportunity to connect with enterprises, for instance. So a lot of them, they've got, kind of a standardized IT department. You can get into them. They can install your solution, and then it gets used by, potentially tens of thousands of people at a time. And, you could create these unique workflows for either different positions or for different user types, and it would be just a way to save time. And so, we kind of had that in our back pocket, but again, just didn't really have that, Genesis opportunity. We had talked to some venture capitalists about it, and, they were basically like, oh, are you crazy? You're trying to take on Google. So, it was kind of on the back burner, just evolving organically. And then, we realized that there was an opportunity, because of all the people that are kind of fed up with one company controlling so much of the internet, that this might be a way to basically kickstart or Indiegogo type crowdfund the creation of the system, and then to basically provide the people who bought the tokens with a way for them to be utilized. And so that was kind of the genesis. It was a pretty long answer, but it's a pretty interesting situation, I think. So hopefully that answers that. Next question, is it safe for people? Yeah, regulation wise, yeah, really tough to talk about that. Basically do your own research on that. Unfortunately, that's all I can really say. So next question here, how does Presearch plan to provide better search results than Google? I ask this because whenever I'm doing research online, I've tried using Bing, DuckDuckGo, etc. Google always provides the best results, shows more options that are most relevant to whatever I'm researching. And that, I mean, ultimately is a massive challenge. I mean, where Google is really fortunate is that they have the largest data set to work with as far as the actual usage. So, they can test something out and they can really uncover what works best because of that. So, really our model is about leveraging Google. So, enabling people to basically search Google very easily, to have it be one click away while we develop our own results. So we are getting ready to launch an alpha version of our own search engine. It's not super decentralized to start. We're basically just like DuckDuckGo. We're leveraging the Bing API, which is actually a really great resource. They've spent about $5 billion building out that service, and it is really the only way to really tackle the long tail of the web right now. Right now, 50% of all searches, even on Google, have never been seen before. That's how many different combinations there are. It's the long tail is kind of the really crushingly hard part of search. So on those short tail queries, which are the things that people look up, really frequently, really common, we're going to tackle those individually, and basically we're building out a system so that the community can curate information around those and participate in the process. And so we're not as concerned about those short tail searches, but there's still a lot of work to be done there. But really the way that we see it is that we can build up a trust network. It's going to be very token centric. There will be basically proof of stake like model within the system, where you will be able to build and allocate trust and have trusted members participate within the environment and curate information. So there's some huge challenges around always gaming the system and black hat work, and we think we've got some pretty interesting ways to handle that. So it's going to take time. This is definitely not an overnight project. It is going to take years to reach the full potential, but we think we can actually get to 80% of the potential within a fairly short time frame, based on just all the things that we can learn from what Google and others have already done, leveraging kind of these new token-based models and blockchain models on top, and really just kind of creating that community and that incentivization for people to participate and help to build Presearch and make it so that it's competitive with the best providers in the world. Now, what's really interesting as well, in addition to be able to leverage what's out there, is some of the incumbents, they have legacy systems. So Google, for instance, they're like $100 billion a year company revenue wise, and like a huge percentage of it, like 75, 80% of it, maybe more, comes from Google AdWords still, and AdSense, and that monetization model. And so for them to fund all these, moonshot projects, all the things, where they're doing self-driving cars and the stuff that's, really exciting, they're leveraging this, old kind of technology business, AdWords, which has been around since 2000, 2002, 2003, with the company that they acquired that became the AdWords advertising ecosystem. And so they're kind of protecting that legacy business. They have to. It's what's responsible for their revenue. And so that is one of our advantages as well. And sometimes we look at things and we think, this whole search paradigm could probably shift and improve, but they're likely not going to do it because it's going to upset the apple cart. So we're in a fortunate position where we really don't have those legacy ties, and where it's going to enable us to experiment more and hopefully enable the community to experiment and participate. And we're going to be able to come up with something that's even better than what's out there currently. So hopefully that answers the question. Next thing, how positive are we that we can beat Google's response times? That's obviously going to be one of the biggest challenges. I think there's a couple ways that we're going to do really well there. I mean, one of them is actually just more about perception of time, right? If you get a response to something, even if it's not necessarily the final result, but it feels like things are working. Like for instance, if you've ever used travel website, or one of the aggregator sites where they're going out and they're searching a whole bunch of different sites, you don't get your results back for a little bit, but it's at least giving you these progress indicators, and you can see that things are happening. And so I think that's one of the keys to this. So making sure that it appears responsive and that there's some great user feedback that's being provided. Aside from that, the way that we're looking at ultimately doing this from a decentralization standpoint, and having nodes, and having IPFS, interplanetary file system type index hosting and content hosting, that can actually be very competitive from a response standpoint, because it can actually be localized. You can have multiple simultaneous connections to various data sources, so that you're not kind of going through one pipe or one path to get the information. And so we think that ultimately it's going to work really well in the short term. The alpha that we'll have out shortly actually is extremely responsive. Again, it's largely right now leveraging the Bing API to cover the long tail of search, but that API is extremely responsive. And the way that we've built the search results page, it's basically using a socket technology that enables different components to load independently, asynchronously, rather than just like a straight out HTTP call. And it actually seems to be extremely responsive, possibly even more responsive than some of the incumbents. So we think there's lots of ways that we can make this happen. Next question, will it have crawlers? If yes, how different would they be from conventional search engines? If not, how will they keep the database up to date? Really great question. So we're actually getting pretty close to launching our first crawler. And again, kind of the way that we're really rolling this out, we're focused on solving the user side of things. We want to make sure that we have something that people can actually use, because we could build all the technology in the world, but if nobody's using it, then it's useless. It doesn't have the value, and especially for the token economy. We're really trying to solve that problem primarily. And so we are running basically a centralized crawler to start, but as we go, basically the plan is to enable people to participate by running software on their local computers. So they'll be able to run, a browser extension or a standalone browser, or basically a node-based application, and earn Presearch tokens in exchange for actually crawling and indexing the web. So again, rather than try to build this massive infrastructure like what the incumbents have, we're looking to use distributed infrastructure and enable everybody to participate in the process, improve the resilience. Also, one of the biggest challenges with crawling is actually just being allowed to do it. Webmasters have the ability to block crawlers through robots.txt file. And so if you crawl too heavily, where you're putting too much load onto a server, onto a website, that can stop you from actually going back there, in your subsequent crawls. So, we're looking at different ways to basically crawl very lightly, very gently, and in a distributed fashion that's not going to put a huge amount of load onto all the different resources. So, again, I think we've got a lot of interesting stuff. We are going to have some announcements in the next few weeks. We've got some really interesting talent on our team on the crawl side. So great question. Let's see here. Next question. I have a tendency to just type a search into the bar from a tab that I'm in before opening a new one. This defaults to Google search. Are there plans in place to adapt the extension to allow searches through Presearch directly? Yes, we have that coming out imminently, actually, just a new browser extension that is going to enable you to search from the address bar or the Omnibox or the search field. Right now, it's on Firefox and Chrome. We are working on Safari as well as Brave in the future. And yes, you will be able to search Presearch through that same interface that you're used to. We know that that's the best way to do it. We've really been trying to figure things out. I mean, ultimately, because of the way that the tokens utilized within the system, it is what advertisers use to buy advertising on the platform. We need to ensure that, let's say if you set Google as your default within Presearch, that when you search through there and we're rewarding you with tokens, we have some way to create and capture some of that value just to ensure that the ecosystem works so that we can continue rewarding people, ultimately not from the Presearch pool, but directly from the advertisers and the sponsors. And so we're getting closer to having those developed. And in the meantime, we feel pretty confident that the model that we're going to roll out is going to work and people are going to use it. So great question. Really excited to get that out there. What do we see being the biggest challenge our team faces in the near future? I mean, the whole space, I think, just it's volatility. So you've got just the general crypto space, huge volatility. You've got regulatory uncertainty. You've got just consumer, I guess, interest kind of going up and down in the space. And that's probably the biggest variable that anybody in the crypto space is dealing with right now. I mean, we did anticipate, a decline that, we've seen since January. And so we've been well prepared for that. But, some of the stuff you'll see, the number of Bitcoin searches, for instance, declining obviously drastically from the December rush. So, I mean, that kind of affects the interest in the entire crypto space. Now for us, because we've got really a real project that has a real product already that you can touch and feel and use and is creating value, and because we are targeting a very timely, I think, opportunity from a media standpoint, there's lots of press right now talking about some of the things that we are targeting, user privacy and data protection. There's a new thing coming out in Europe, GDPR, which is a way that hopefully consumers are going to be protected from being abused by some of the larger companies. So there's lots of press opportunities for us, and there's a lot of interest in seeing a challenger because there really hasn't been a ton of innovation in the search space. And really, right now you've got Google and Facebook and Amazon that are just about dominating the web. And I think people are ready for something new, ready for something more decentralized, and something that is not just coming out of Silicon Valley to enrich the 1%. So I think we've got some really great timing there. But yeah, I think just overall volatility, I think, is kind of the biggest challenge, and it's something that we really don't have a whole ton of influence over, which is different than most of the other stuff that we can solve. Let's see, do we have any incentive for older users with regard to the referral link? Great question. So as I mentioned, we rolled out a new referral program today that will actually take into account any of the referrals that were generated under our old system. As far as we have the portal.presearch.io site, which is where we did the token sale, and that had a referral program in it as well. So anybody who had referrals under that system will be rewarded under this new system as well. They are interlinked. Now, what you need to do, so if you go under the referral section, so you log into presearch.org, go into refer your friends. And then just on the left, you'll see something. If you haven't connected your portal account with your Presearch search account, and there's a link that says connect your account, I believe, or connect to portal. So once you connect those accounts, anything from that older system will be able to be found within the new system. Now, it won't happen instantly in real time. We basically have a process that we're running on a regular basis. So we ran it once today. So everybody who already had referrals under that old system and that already had their portal account connected, those referrals will now be showing up in your presearch.org account. But we will be running that probably on a weekly basis. So if you're just listening in now and you've got referrals under the old system, do that connection, and then you will be credited in the next week or so. Now, unfortunately, we cannot credit you for anybody who did not come in through a referral link. So if you did not use our old system and you basically just invited people, there really isn't a whole ton you could do. I mean, you could have people like cancel their account and rejoin through your link potentially, but then they might, lose their tokens. So, I mean, we just don't have the best answer for anybody there. And that's really why we've, been rushing to get this referral program out. We didn't want any more of that kind of happening moving forward. If there is anybody who's, feeling really disgruntled about this, I mean, I do apologize. You're more than welcome to email info@presearch.io. We'll see what we could do to assist you, but for the most part, they needed to come in through a link. So I hope that answers the question. Next question: what projects resources does our IT team use to review code? Do we have a peer review setup, assuming functional spec docs, tech specs? Please confirm. So we're really moving more in that direction. We've basically been trying to just get things out quickly right now. So we are doing automated testing. We've recently brought somebody on, a young man, Dylan Curran. He was the guy who was kind of almost like the whistleblower type guy whose tweet went viral when he talked about, hey, this is how much data Facebook and Twitter have on you, and then he was covered in all the major media. He has joined our team. He is going to be doing a review of the code, and he's going to be publishing regular reports in kind of easy to understand formats for people. But ultimately, this project is going to be open source. Everybody's going to be able to review it, and we're just starting to really kind of get things oriented in that way. So when we have this new alpha engine released, that is going to be really the first thing that you're going to be able to dig into substantially. With the current presearch.org, there's a lot of token stuff involved, and it's stuff that we're just not really ready yet to share to open source. We do have other people that are trying to tackle this problem as well. From competing services, and it is largely to protect the people who are holding tokens, and so we're being pretty cautious on that front. But definitely, as things evolve, it is going to be, yes, definitely peer review. We are going to ensure that there's as much transparency as is technically possible. Some things may need to remain kind of, behind the scenes, particularly fraud prevention measures, stuff like that, just in the earliest days until we know that ultimately what we're trying to do is build fraud prevention measures that can actually be open sourced. And it's not, security through obscurity like it is with, the Google model, for instance, which is kind of why they always say, oh, sorry, we can't tell you anything about how it actually works, because if we did, then people would game the system. We don't want this to be that way, and we do believe that there are trust mechanisms that can be installed, and ways that we can open source even that most sensitive type of information, and have it be out there and have it still be effective. So that's going to be really a key challenge. just the fraud challenge in general. I mean, to actually backtrack a little bit, somebody asked the biggest challenge. I mean, that's just an ongoing one. It's one that we're prepared for, and we know that we're always going to have to work on that. But that as well, there are definitely people out there that are trying to game the system right now. We've been identifying them. We've got lots of measures in place. We do not feel that this is going to be a problem for the token model moving forward. But there's going to have to be some way that we can not just protect the system by having these anti-fraud measures where people just don't know how it works, and that's why they can't defeat it. We need it to actually be open and transparent. And so, I mean, that's going to be a big challenge, but one that we're really excited about. We believe that when that is solved, that's going to open up a ton of different opportunities. So yeah, hopefully that answers that question. Oh, that kind of dovetails into the next question. What methods do you have in place to prevent abuse of the token payment system? Tracking by email address is unreliable. Tracking by IP, multi-user households from utilizing the service. So I assume there are other methods in place. There are. There's a lot of pattern recognition involved. We are, looking at, and I mean, there are a lot of ways to game systems, but we're looking at basically, putting things like thresholds in place that give us enough time to really identify patterns. So you can't just go in and earn 50 tokens and then withdraw them. You're going to have to be searching over a period of time. The searching has to be natural. That's really kind of in the terms of service. We may have some people that are trying to actively game the system right now, and we may end up having conversations with them. What we're trying to do is reward people for actually searching. We're really not trying to just give people free tokens. If you're just looking for tokens, then your best bet is actually the referral program. Go invite your friends and get them in there. You can accumulate a lot of tokens that way, and create value. There is a process in place there as well. Anybody that you refer, for instance, has to earn a minimum number of tokens. They have to be active for a certain period of time. So a lot of it is pattern recognition, time thresholds, looking at different ways based on kind of your risk profile, your risk score, that you can prove that you are acting in good faith, basically. Ultimately, there will be a peer review system in place, and that's one of our big takeaways from our run-in with the Google penalty was just their lack of due process was what really made that not seem just. And so we are very sensitive to that. We're very aware of that. We want to make sure that we are not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, and that people who might get flagged as potentially abusing the system due to some of their activities, if that is not the case, that they have a process to go through, and that we can connect with all the people who are doing this in good faith and ensure that they're being rewarded for their searches. I mean, we're really excited about that. We think it's a great model. We think there's huge value in them providing the opportunity to work with them when they're at their moment of transactional intent. They are trying to find products, services, resources, and that is a really high value opportunity to introduce them to sponsors, or to provide them with a different way to interface with the web. And so we really value that, and we want people to be compensated for it. We do, though, want to make sure that it is legitimate usage and it is not people that are just gaming the system. And so that's one of the ongoing challenges, but again, one that we are pretty excited about. We've got some great people on our team that are experienced in that department, and we think that there are some really interesting and innovative ways to leverage blockchain to facilitate this, make it happen. So hopefully that answers that question. Are we going after those 12,500 bankers? That's an awesome question. Probably a lot more than that. That's for sure. And yeah, I mean, I think the whole decentralization space, that's really, I think, the goal, right? You're trying to shift the balance of power back to the people and away from those who are extracting value without creating it. And we see that this is a way that we can enable those who are participating, those who are curating content, contributing content, helping us to spread the word, utilizing the system to be rewarded for their actions and activities. So yeah, definitely. Somebody's asking, do you have access to see what we search? No, we do not. We do not have that. We are currently not databasing searches. We have ways to detect patterns that, it's kind of in the moment. But it's not anything, we can't see it. There is no storage of that information. Ultimately, we see some interesting models where you will be able to determine basically like where we really want to differentiate ourselves. Ultimately, we see this being all about choice and providing people with more choice. And so, some of the key differences between us and, let's say, the incumbents, well, we're going to be doing things where it's opt-in. So we're not going to automatically opt people into stuff and then they have to opt out of it. So that they're getting stuff that they didn't know that they were getting. So, that's a key difference. We're looking at, that the fact that people are not able to monetize their data, and they are not really part of that whole process, even though it's extremely profitable. If you look at Google, I mean, their profit margins are unbelievable. They're making, it's like more than $10 million a day in profit, and they're trying to spend as much as they possibly can spend, and they're still making that much money. It's like it's insane. And so we're looking at ways that, if you want to be totally anonymous and if you don't want to share anything, you'll be able to use it even without logging in. Obviously, you won't be able to earn tokens, but there's going to be no data collection. There's really no nothing. You're just using it, and it's basically like a dumb platform. It is not, collecting anything. There's no real interaction aside from what you are seeing going on. And then, at the other end of the spectrum, maybe you are, looking to monetize your information. You maybe aren't so concerned about privacy, whatever. We want to enable you to share that so that you can help marketers target you better, and you can earn part of what they pay to reach you, which really I think makes sense. I mean, there's a ton of blockchain projects that kind of are positioning themselves that way. So there's definitely an interesting opportunity there for people to benefit. But ultimately, we see it as being more of just the whole process, the whole platform being an active platform. So right now, for instance, Google is basically like a one size fits all type system, and it's passively personalizing things. So based on what you do, that's the results that it's serving to you, which, in a lot of respects, it makes a lot of sense, and it's probably, their best opportunity to monetize. But we would like to provide people with a greater opportunity. We think that, personal development, personal transformation is really a huge thing. It's going to be the biggest trend over the next century. All of us trying to reach our potential as we, let go of more of our base kind of, needs. We've got food, we've got, clean water, we've got technology, even across the developing world. People then, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we start, moving up that pyramid so that we're going towards self-actualization. And that's really what we want to help facilitate through this platform. So rather than, let's say you're overweight and, you're really susceptible to cheeseburger ads, and you click on lots of cheeseburger ads, but you don't want to. You want to get healthy. You want to, eat differently. We don't want to keep feeding you that junk just because that's what you're reacting to. We want to enable you to go in there and specify, hey, when I'm doing restaurant searches, I only want to see, healthy restaurants, or, recipes. I only want to see healthy recipes, or, any of these different things. I mean, right now, Google and Facebook, they're creating these like filter bubbles basically. And, they're not giving everybody, kind of both sides to the story. They do have biases built into them, but, they kind of act as if they don't. And so what we want to do is give people really the full picture, enable them to go in, actively personalize things, set out their ideals, and have the results match the ideals to help them reach their human potential and their highest, best self. And so that's kind of, one of the key differences that we see. But, to go back to that question, do we see it? No, we don't. And, if there is ever any databasing of that information, it will be, your choice to do that. So I hope that answers the questions. Next one here. Looks like token awards are meant to pay for our search data. If I understood well, this data will be public too. Am I right to imply that anyone will be able to pre-search blockchain for their own big data researches for free? This would be huge. How anonymous will this data be? So again, that might tie into, the model of monetizing your data. Right now we're just, we're not there. The entire blockchain space, kind of as a whole, as far as storing actual content, not, numeric values. I mean, it's evolving. Steemit is probably, one of the biggest leaders in the space. They've got an interesting blockchain. We're looking at their technology and how it's being utilized. But, we're still kind of early in this process, and we're doing just, a lot of proofs of concepts, a lot of exploratory work to see, what actually makes sense, what is going to be scalable. So, storing those preferences, storing that information is something that we are planning to enable you to do. Likely, it's going to be blockchain based, and it's going to have a strong hashing system, so that only you have access to it. We're looking at basically enabling you to run as much stuff locally as possible, so that it's not out there on other people's networks. But there might be a really big opportunity, like you said, to anonymize some of this data and put it into a format so that people can pay to access that data, not even from a marketing standpoint, but just from a demographic research standpoint. Market research is huge, and it really does help people understand opportunities better. And there are ways that can be leveraged. So it's something that I would say be a little more down the track, not our key focus right now, but it is definitely an opportunity that we could help everybody connect with. So next question, what major conferences will you guys be presenting at, making appearances at in the future? What's your strategy to keep the project going? So major conferences, going to Startup Societies in Washington on the 9th and 10th of this month. We are going to Consensus. I think that's the 14th and the 16th. We will not be presenting there to my knowledge, but we will be attending. There is kind of a side conference to that, I believe a couple days before, a Women in Blockchain conference that Shannon from our team will be attending. There's another one right after that called restartx.com, put on by the same people that did the Block to the Future conference, Kurt and his team. That's on the 18th. I will be speaking there. After that, I will be speaking, and we're hosting a panel at Voice and Exit, which is a conference in Austin, Texas. That will be the 18th until the 20th, I believe. So we've got a lot of stuff happening this month. We are the title sponsors for Dogecoin in Vancouver on what is that, June 21st. So really excited about that conference. We think that one's going to be awesome. There's a really great community there. A lot of the people who really believe in open source and the people who really believe in decentralization and also in, you know, kind of bringing a little bit of fun to things, obviously, are going to be attending that conference. So we're super pumped. We are the title sponsors there. We actually just signed on. We are the title sponsors as well for the next Token Fest conference that's coming up, I believe, middle of September in Boston. We attended Token Fest in San Francisco this past March, and it was an awesome setup. It was, you know, really, really professional, almost a next level blockchain conference, and it was the first one from that producer in the space. So we did just sign on for that. We're really pumped about that. We think that's going to be a great opportunity to get the Presearch brand out there, and we're going to be participating at as many events as possible. Some of you may be aware we do have an RV, the HODL tour bus or HODL tour, however you want to pronounce it. And so that has been kind of stuck in Vegas for the winter. We need to get it back to Canada so that we can re-up our insurance up here. And we had to wait for the snow to go for that to happen. So the bus will be coming back to Canada in the next couple of weeks, and then it'll be going on tour again across North America. So we'll be out attending lots of events there, spreading the word about Presearch and decentralization and the open search movement. Really excited about that. And then yeah, just getting the word out in general. We've just hired a new marketing firm called Never Stop Marketing. So really excited to be working with them. Jeremy Epstein, who's the founder, Epstein, sorry, I don't know how to pronounce it, Jeremy. Really awesome guy, thought leader in the space. He runs a Crypto Valley tour in Zug in Switzerland. You know, he's an influencer, keynote speaker, was I believe, the chief marketing officer prior to getting into his own consulting firm for Sprinkler, which is a large enterprise online service provider. And the guy just has an awesome vision for how to empower our community to help spread the word about Presearch. And so we're working with them. We've just re-signed as well with Transform PR. That is Michael Turpin's group. So you can expect lots more media. We've got a ton of announcements that are going to be coming out over the next couple months. We've been pretty quiet over the past, 4 or 5 months since we ended the token sale and kind of opened up the beta. We've just been trying to get a whole bunch of ducks in a row, build out the organization, ensure that the product is working for users. And we've just been so heads down on that, that we have not been doing a ton of marketing, but that has given us a whole ton of stuff that we've saved up that we're going to start, hammering out there to really build the awareness about Presearch. So we've got tons of announcements that are coming up, and we're going to be connecting with people in the space. And we've got more and more, influencers and thought leaders within the space that are realizing, that Presearch is a legitimate project. It's not, like some of these token projects where the people, it's just a money grab. They know that we're in this for the right reasons, that we're in this for the long haul, that we're in this to make change, and they love the model. They can see how it's working already and how we're executing from a product standpoint. And so they're starting to align with us, which is awesome, and we're super grateful for. So, it's really just about creating a groundswell over the next 3 to 6 months and kind of, pushing this to the next phase of the project, which is going to be, the fully decentralized search engine, kind of the vision for what we're trying to do. Ultimately, we see a way that we can enable everybody from the community to participate, vote on what features should be built and how the system should work, just enable massive customization so that you'll be able to go in and really tweak things, from the data side, enabling teams of data scientists from different universities to monetize their algorithms and their IP that they've developed, and try basically and experiment with just all these different algorithms and see if some of the brightest minds can with a vehicle come up with something that works better than these closed systems. Enable experts, subject matter experts, to curate collections of information and monetize it. Ultimately, we see a way where you could basically customize your Presearch so that it's got all of your different settings, it's got all of your different choices, and you could share that and then monetize that. You have like a really interesting perspective on something, and it's a big community. People might want to see things the way you see it. You could choose to put it out there and monetize it. So that vision, on top of the infrastructure where we're going to enable people to do the the crawling and the indexing and some of the data crunching on their own nodes, we just think is so exciting, super powerful. So we're working towards that, and between now and then we're basically building out the governance model. So we knew that this was kind of a time sensitive opportunity. We wanted to get this out there really quickly. We did not have time to have all those ducks in a row when we went out there and pushed this project out. So we are going towards that as quickly as we can right now. We've got a community council group already. There's about 10 people that are actively working with us to kind of build out the governance model and to really figure out how the community is going to actively participate in the project. And the ultimate goal is to turn this into an entity that is controlled by the community, 100% open and transparent, and where it is a resource that eventually humanity as a whole will own. It will not be, oh, there's a company that controls this thing. It'll be, oh, cool, we all own this thing, and anybody who has tokens is a stakeholder and a user and a producer within the system, and be able to really build the resource that I think we all deserve. The internet is an amazing resource, and I think that society, humanity deserves to have something that is dedicated to the greater ideals of us all, and is not just about short-term profit, enriching the few who were at the genesis of the project, and extracting as much value as possible from all these different communities. We want to have a regenerative system that puts resources in touch with resources without extracting. And so we think that that's really the model for that to happen. And we're really just so grateful for the opportunity to have kickstarted this thing with everybody's support, and to really take this to the next level and build out an amazing resource that we can all be really proud of, and that our kids and our kids' kids will come to know and utilize and be able to use in good faith, that it's not something that is steering them in some weird direction with an underlying bias, or that is gonna ultimately disrupt their livelihood because it's choosing that it wants to monetize harder. So anyways, I hope that answers the question. I'm so grateful for this opportunity to talk to you all and connect with this community. We do want to be active within the Crypto Mountain community. It seems like a great group of people, and so we'll try to kind of stay involved. And you can connect with us through here. Telegram, t.me/Presearch is our community Telegram that we've got already a lot of really great people. There's a really great vibe. Everybody always compliments on how helpful and friendly it is. And I think that that's what's really awesome about these two communities. They are so aligned that way. A lot of really great people here, and some visionaries, and people who have already played a really big role in this project, and I know are going to play an even bigger role. So thanks to you all, and awesome questions. And yeah, we'll keep this thing going. And last question: Dogecoin title sponsor equals moon. Love it. We'll end with that. On the way to the moon. Thanks, Nick.
Yeah, thanks, Colin. Appreciate it. Really good job.
Awesome.
All right,
Take care,
folks.
everyone.
Thank you guys for coming, and don't forget the huddle.
Huddle, baby.